This is Outnumbered. I'm Andrea Tanteros. Here today, Harris Faulkner, Sandra Smith, Democratic strategist and Fox News contributor Julie Rodzinski's back. And today's hashtag one lucky guy. We put him on a train and sent him right here, senior editor of the National Review, Jonah Goldberg. And you're outnumbered, Jonah.
Yeah, it was a long train ride from Budapest, but I got here. So.
Wow. You were the funniest dude on Twitter during the debate last night. I mean, your comments were, everybody was retweeting you.
Well, thank you. I was out of my medication, so I needed to do something. But anyway.
Or maybe you were on that 40-year-old pot or whatever that Carly was talking about. You had some very funny tweets.
She was right about that. Pot of the 1980s and 1970s is very different than the pot today.
She was.
Just watch me on the show today to see what I mean.
I do that all the time. So. Yeah.
All right. What a night. Fireworks at the Republican debate with you-know-who targeted. Now, there may have been 11 candidates on that stage, but for the most part, it seemed to be GOP frontrunner Donald Trump versus the entire field. The Donald taking hits from all sides at the Reagan National Library as his rivals tried to take him down a notch or two. And Trump, well, dishing it right back and firing the first shot.
First of all, Rand Paul shouldn't even be on this stage. He's number 11. He's got 1% in the polls, and how he got up here, there's far too many people. Anyway,
I think really there's a sophomore quality that is entertaining about Mr. Trump, but I am worried. I'm very concerned about him.
I never attacked him on his look, and believe me, there's plenty of subject matter right there.
And Mr. Trump, we don't need an apprentice in the White House. We don't need an apprentice in the White House. We have one right now. He told us all the things we wanted to hear back in 2008. We don't know who you are or where you're going. We need someone who can actually get the job done.
You got Hillary Clinton to go to your wedding
That's
because
true.
you gave her
That's
money.
true.
Maybe it works for Hillary Clinton.
Excuse
it doesn't
me,
work
Jeff.
for anybody on
Jeff,
this stage.
I was a businessman. I got along with Clinton. I got along with everybody.
Yeah.
That was my job, to get along with people.
But the
I didn't
simple
wanna,
fact is...
Excuse me. 1 second.
No.
I
the
didn't
simple
want
fact
to...
is, Donald, you cannot take...
More energy tonight. I like that. Look.
You ran up mountains of debt as well as losses using other people's money, and you were forced to file for bankruptcy not once,
I never filed
not
for
twice,
bankruptcy.
4 times, a record 4 times. Why should we trust you
Mr.
to
Trump.
manage
Why?
the
It's very
finances
simple.
of this nation
I tell you,
any differently
I
than you
was
manage
running-
the finances
Carly,
of your casinos?
Carly.
The fact is that we don't want to hear about your careers, back and forth and volleying back and forth about who did well and who did poorly. You're both successful people. Congratulations.
Lots of fireworks. So, the human pinata, Donald Trump, did the candy spill out after all the beating?
I don't think anybody who went in as a big fan of Donald Trump went out not being a fan of Donald Trump. Mm-hmm. Although that clip didn't do justice to how, I mean, like the Randometer went to 11 on his attack on Rand Paul, right? I mean, he might as well have had a tinfoil hat on a bus talking about how he didn't feed his cat. It was just like, Carly Fiorina said something to him, and he said, instead of replying to Carly Fiorina, he says, let me just point out that Rand Paul doesn't belong here. It's a very weird kind of total non sequitur kind of thing, and got the whole thing off to a nice surreal start.
You know what, though? He knew, Harris, that Rand was going to come after him because Rand had said to the press he was going to attack him for not being conservative enough. So Donald Trump figured, I'll just deal the first blow.
You know what I bet even caught Donald Trump off? How much the moderators focused on Donald Trump last night. I mean, it was to the point of exclusivity and awkwardness at times, as though there was not a place to go next. And as a journalist, I could think of many more questions, as we often do, because that's what we do. We watch TV and we think of what we would ask. But anything to get the conversation going forward at one point. And, you know, when Governor Christie stood up and said, this is sophomoric, the people who are not succeeding in this country are the ones with, and then he went down the litany and tipped his hat to the middle class and talked about that. I thought, oh yeah, that's what an issue sounds like. I mean, we really saw something go off the rails and off track last night. And, you know, I don't know if that even served Donald Trump as much. I think he would have liked to have talked about the issues more.
Well, there's one thing for sure, Sandra, is all of these candidates on the stage, their most, I think, important test up until this point has been Donald Trump. And a lot of them seem to not be able to handle Trump. I mean, that is the best test that I think we've seen so far, and a couple of them failed. How do you think they did beating up on the front runner?
I walked away from the debate just a little unfulfilled. I was disappointed. You know where I'm going with this. I was disappointed from an economy aspect, how little was mentioned about the economy, the mess that we're still in, the dismal recovery that we've seen. How about somebody acknowledge that the job participation rate in this country is at a record low? Turn to the camera, forget who's arguing with who, and say, this is what we're looking at, and this is how I'm going to fix it. I feel like somebody like Chris Christie, Carly Fiorina could have just stolen the show if they had done that. But that was just lacking for me. Conversation or debate on the economy and how to fix it. Where was it?
Yeah, because it seemed like, Julie, they were trying to pit the candidates against each other, almost like a reality television program, instead of asking really substantive questions. I mean, the questions I think that were really hard-hitting were at the Fox News debate. And by the way, where were the other two moderators? I mean, Dana Bash seemed like a prop. I mean, at least Fox News, we elevate women and let them actually ask some questions.
I know, we were talking about this earlier, poor Hewitt was just sitting there, and I think he's an incredibly good interviewer, and he was just lost in the sauce. I don't know where he was. Look, I think Donald Trump was pressed by Jake Tapper on some substance, and Vladimir Putin specifically. He said, how would you deal with him? And Trump, of course, does not want to talk about substance, because all Trump talked about was, he's going to really like me. Well, why is he going to like you? Well, I'm going to make him like me. We're going to get along really well. Why are you going to get along really well? Because we're going to get along really well. And so consistently, Donald Trump, you know, candidates do debate prep in different ways, and I think substantive candidates do substantive debate prep. You saw that with some of the other candidates we'll talk about later. Trump was there because it is like The Apprentice. It is a reality show. CNN wanted the reality show. They wanted the ratings for that purpose, and Donald Trump played right into their hands. So that's exactly what Trump wanted to do. He never wanted to talk about
Trump even admitted that he would only bone up on the issues if he got elected president.
It's amazing.
Which I think is an amazing admission. He said, well, look, you know, once I'm in there, I'll learn all this stuff and I'll be I'll be huge, I'll be fantastic. But until then, he just admitted he didn't know that stuff.
And then the best part about Trump is where he starts lecturing Carson on medicine. He's essentially telling Carson he's wrong on vaccines. This guy's the most brilliant surgeon, from what I understand, and you know, in the last 20, 30 years. And here's Donald Trump.
I don't think it hurt. You know what, though? I don't think it hurt him. I don't. His supporters, as Jonah, as you mentioned, I don't think they're going anywhere. I think, if anything, Carly's probably going to get a little bit of a boost. But I think Trump holds his support.
You know, and what you just said is inherent, the question of where else would they go. Was there anybody on either of those stages, the early or the prime debate, that would siphon away votes or support from Trump? So where would they go?
Well, a lot of people say Carly Fiorina won the debate, and she had a lot to gain in the debate, and possibly she was the big winner. All right, another candidate who stood out on that stage was Carly Fiorina, making her debut in the primetime lineup. Many analysts declaring her the winner, as I just mentioned, thanks to her detailed policy answers and a number of zingers. Watch.
We need the strongest military on the face of the planet, and everyone has to know it. And specifically what that means is we need about 50 Army brigades, we need about 36 Marine battalions, we need somewhere between 300 and 350 naval ships, we need to upgrade every leg of the nuclear triad. Anyone who has watched this videotape, I dare Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama to watch these tapes. Watch a fully formed fetus on the table, its heart beating, its legs kicking, while someone says we have to keep it alive to harvest its brain. I very much hope that I am the only person on this stage who can say this, but I know there are millions of Americans out there who will say the same thing. My husband Frank and I buried a child to drug addiction. So we must invest more in the treatment of drugs. I wouldn't change the $10 bill or the $20 bill. I think, honestly, it's a gesture. I don't think it helps to change our history. What I would think is that we ought to recognize that women are not a special interest group.
And maybe her biggest moment came when she was asked about comments Donald Trump made recently, suggesting her appearance made her unelectable.
Mr. Trump said that he heard Mr. Bush very clearly. And what Mr. Bush said. I think women all over this country heard very clearly what Mr. Trump said.
That was really a defining moment, Julie, don't you think, of the debates last night?
That was the mic drop. Boom. I mean, that was, I love this woman. I don't obviously do not agree with her much, but she's amazing. And what she said to Donald Trump was the only thing that got Donald Trump rattled. And then Trump, of course, tries to respond to her by basically telling her she's hot. Underscoring exactly.
You don't think he meant it?
Yeah, underscoring exactly what every woman there did, along with her when she did the eye roll at him afterwards, like.
But what is it about Carly that you just said you don't agree with her on much, but you love her, and that you can hear that sentiment echoed. I've heard that from quite a few people, Andrea. So what is it about her? Is it that she's being so specific?
It's not only that. I mean, she doesn't play the victim. She's very, very smart. She's very tough. And I'm bothered by the fact that we hear this morning that she should have smiled more. I mean, I'm reading that and I'm hearing that from mostly male commentators. Yeah. And, you know, you get that a lot. I mean, I was told early in my career, you should really smile more on TV. You look very angry. Okay, so I'm going to be talking about ISIS and going, yes, as they're beheading children. She's talking about serious issues, Sandra, and I think there's such a contrast between her and Hillary Clinton. There's no way that that woman would bungle a server. There's no way that that woman standing on that stage would jeopardize our national security. There's no way that that woman would stand up and basically say, oopsie daisy, I don't know what classified info is. She is the opposite in every way of Hillary Clinton, and she made me proud last night, not just to be a Republican, but to be a woman.
Good. And that you can also hear from a lot of women the morning after. Jonah, when you looked at the debate, did you feel like she held her own against all the men on the stage? Or do you think one time she tried to interrupt Governor Christie?
Yeah.
Christie held her off.
Yeah.
How do you think that went?
Probably not great for Christie, but I think Christie actually had a pretty good night. I should offer a full disclosure, which I've set up before on the show. My wife worked on Carly Fiorina's last book with her, and my wife's a big fan of Carly, does not work for her. I think one of the reasons why Fiorina just does so well is, first of all, she takes the thing really seriously. She goes in and just simply does her homework and is ready to play ball at the major league level. Mm-hmm. And I think that is a very refreshing thing. I also think, you know, it's her ability to, she's doing something very similar that Newt Gingrich did in 2012. During Newt Gingrich's boomlet, he subtly suggested to audiences time and again, wouldn't it be awesome to see me debate Barack Obama?
Yeah.
Right? And he lit up those debates by saying, look what I can do to these guys. Just imagine me against Barack Obama. And she does the exact same thing all the time with Hillary. She took Trump's attack on her and turned it into attack on Hillary with that ad that she put out, which was brilliant. And she does that time and time again, and people like that. And I think in part she might be auditioning for vice president, and I think she might be a great candidate for vice president.
You know what else she did last night that I'm a big fan of? She gave homework to her opponents. I love it when somebody schools you and she says, Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, here's your homework. Watch this video, this Planned Parenthood video. I'm a big fan of that because she obviously has already choreographed in her mind what that argument's going to look like. She's so ready for the fight. Yeah. You know, Andrea and I were tweeting back and forth last night, and you gave her an A. And then I saw all the other people because I said, well, can you grade some of the people that are, and you gave her, and now we know why. You gave your reasons why. But I was really watching to see what others had to say about what was resonating with them. They liked the fact that she was so serious. It seemed like there was a lot of drama on the stage. She seemed to cut through that. She did the very thing that Sandra said that needed to be done, maybe not specifically on the economy, and that should have been part of the discussion, but there were so many things that should have been part of that discussion last night that just simply weren't there. But to me, she had the ability to say, as I do with my children, okay, kids, here's the good part that you have to know. And she really did that in such an even-keeled way. She and Dr. Ben Carson have a way of doing that. Now, part of that is their style, but also it's her preparedness.
Mm-hmm. No doubt.
By the way, part of the problem, as Andrea pointed out, and not the problem, I should say. Some people are saying she didn't smile enough. Did she have enough lighthearted moments, though? She was substantive, but did she?
Well, she did. I mean, the eye roll at Trump I thought was spectacular. I mean, when he was complimenting her on her looks, we've all been at the bar with the frat guy who's like saying something offensive, and you're like, oh, and that's exactly what she did. Yeah. That was lighthearted. The other thing, she got a very subtle dig in at Trump, where she said, and of course, everybody here on stage knows who General Soleimani is, who, of course, is the head of the Quds Force. And of course, Trump has no idea, as we found out from the Hugh Hewitt.
And she called him an entertainer.
She did. I thought
she did get her little dig in early on.
But I have to give Andrea, you're so right. When people constantly tell women, and she's right, she did an interview today talking about how nobody talks about men's looks, but people were talking about her looks.
Well,
and it's exactly,
I'm a little bit guilty of talking about their looks. I did tweet a picture last night. It was a side-by-side of Donald Trump's face and Grumpy Cat. Because I did see a familiarity there. And he was making, Donald Trump was making lots of faces, speaking of faces last night.
He sure did.
Yeah. And so, yeah, they talk about his hair and his face, too. But you're right. I mean, is she supposed to be inauthentic, Carly, and fake this smile?
Right.
I mean,
and do you think Jeb had enough energy? We're going to talk about Jeb Bush a little bit later in the show, so stay tuned for that. Meanwhile, a stunning admission about the United States' effort to defeat ISIS. After we spent $500 million, we're now told there are just 4 or 5 U.S. trained trained rebel fighters on the ground in Syria right now. Plus, Hillary Clinton joking around with Jimmy Fallon about her emails, making light of a controversy that's the focus of an FBI investigation. Is this a good move or not? And right after the show, catch more from the couch on the web. Join us for Outnumbered Overtime by logging on to foxnews.com/outnumbered. Click on the Overtime tab. Harris is right now. Tweet us your questions, comments. Tell us what topic you want to hear more about.